The Rose Bowl is more than just a tradition. It's a chance for Ohio State to make a statement against the number one team in the country.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy New Year, Buckeye fans. Welcome in to your Wednesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime, because GameTime has an exclusive offer for the Rose Bowl. 10% off tickets in the home corners, away corners, and end zones, making prices even better. These exclusive zone deals are specially selected sections of the stadium where fans can find deeper discounts by letting GameTime choose their exact seats for the game. During today's show, we'll be joined by Jason Fitz of Yahoo Sports to dive into who's going to win the Rose Bowl, some New Year's resolutions for Ryan Day, and some things Ohio State must do to beat Oregon and the granddaddy of them all. And joining us here to start off the new year on the show, it's a man that's a Yahoo Sports football analyst and a co-host of the College Football Power Hour there at Yahoo Sports. He was with us a few weeks ago. He's back with us once again today. It's Jason Fitz. And Jason, it's the first day of the new year. It's the day the Buckeyes and the Ducks get back on the field. It's the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. To me, this is a great day to kick off the new year for Ohio State.
And this is, by the way, the game that college football needs.
Yeah.
We didn't get a lot in the first round that surprised me. I know when you and I talked before, we went a little back and forth at what would the Ohio State-Tennessee game look like. But I think we said throughout the course of that entire thing that if it got out of control early, it was going to get really bad because Tennessee wasn't built for that. We knew that. Got out of control. Credit to Ohio State, played a hell of a game. But that means that everything we got in the first round was a blowout. And look, as we tape this right now, we're not yet to what the first game of the second round looks like. But if you ask me right now, I think Texas is going to absolutely demolish Arizona State. I think Penn State is going to just embarrass Boise State. Like, the seeding issues and the ranking issues and everything reared its ugly head. So we got two shots at a decent game. One is Notre Dame, Georgia, which I think is actually going to be a really ugly football game. And then we have this. This game has to be the Picasso of the entire process because we need a saving grace. Like, I'm a Star Wars nerd, right? Like, this is the help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Like, that is what college football is saying to Oregon, Ohio State. It has to be the help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope game because, frankly, everything else is just it looks like it could be more bad than good.
The good thing about this one is you, myself, other people that cover the sport all believe this is going to be the game. That this could be more of one of your Final Four games or some of the final games that is going to have that kind of appeal to it. It has to be good. You got two good quarterbacks. You got two good coaches. You got two good defenses. You can even say great defenses, to be honest with you. You got offenses that can attack you in various ways. This game has everything that you want a playoff game to have. We're getting in the quarterfinal round, not the semifinal or even the national championship. I don't really I have my own thoughts about the seeding. I think the seeding is crazy, but let's just be glad we're getting a game like this between Ohio State and Oregon, because no matter what, both teams can't win the national championship. Eventually, one team has to be eliminated. I'm glad it's coming now when the sport desperately needs it, but also I think Ohio State desperately needs this challenge. You got over one challenge with Tennessee. You need to get over this hump of Oregon, because the last time you faced Oregon, Oregon left the game with a W.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of this. Look, I think this has a chance to be the best game we're going to see throughout the entire playoffs, no matter what, all the way to the championship. This is, we say this all the time in March Madness, right? Like, we've got the real national championship game is right now. Sort of how I feel about a lot of this. I know Texas and Notre Dame and Penn State want to have something to say about it, which is cute. But in this particular matchup, these two teams, what we saw the first time they played, what we've seen from them since, this is that moment that I think is going to give us our best game. Now, there's also a reality here. I don't remember the last time that we as a collective college football group downplayed a number one team the way we downplay Oregon. This team is undefeated for a reason this year. And Like I did it myself early in the season. Dylan Gabriel was completing like 83, 84% of his passes at one point. And I still sat there and said, well, I don't know. He's putting the ball at risk sometimes. He's getting away with some 50-50 balls. Like our expectations were so high for Oregon that we frankly have looked at it and sort of graded them on a curve all year. And what's crazy is that the biggest downfall, if you want to find one nasty thing to say about Oregon, it's that when they played really good teams, those teams have ranked up a ton of yards and a ton of points. To which I say, yes, all in games that Oregon won. Mm-hmm. Like we could talk about the fact that Penn State ran the ball all over Oregon. I think that's concerning. But also let's acknowledge the fact that Oregon put up 45 and still won the football game. Like the worst of Oregon this year has been finding a weird way to win when your defense didn't show up. The worst of Ohio State this year has been Michigan. So, like, if we're going to apply universal worsts in these games, like, I hate it when fans come in and say, well, look at this bad from this team without then applying the same standard to the opposite side. So, the best of Ohio State versus the best of Oregon, I think probably favors Oregon, but it's a flip of the coin. The worst of Ohio State and the worst of Oregon, that's not even close. That favors Oregon. So, like, that's part of this matchup we have to consider is that we are sleeping on the number one team in the country. And Ohio State fans, I would beg you, this is not the time to tear down Oregon. This is the time to build up Oregon. Because if you beat them, you want that. You don't want to turn around and, they weren't all that good to begin. No, build them up. Because if you lose or you beat them, either way, you want to be able to say, yeah, that Oregon team, monsters.
So one thing you said just there was about Penn State running the ball against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. And that's been one of the areas where I say if I'm a national championship contender, there's two things I want. A really good, sound defense, really disciplined defense that can rise to the occasion, but also a solid run game. Ohio State really hasn't had consistency in the run game this year, and it's been one of the things that's been messing up my mind. We know about the guys in the backfield, but also we all know about the injuries on the offensive line. One benefit Ohio State had after the loss, between the loss to Michigan and the win to Tennessee, was about 3 weeks for the offensive line to get chemistry, where they really hadn't had that throughout the entire season. One guy gets hurt. Okay, you put another guy, yet another guy gets hurt. Wow, okay. What about a week before the Michigan game? Another guy gets hurt. They finally got some chemistry. While I don't like some of the things Ryan Day is saying about rotating at guard and things like that, getting that chemistry is going to be very, very pivotal for that unit to be able to run the ball against Oregon.
Yeah, 1,000% correct. And look, Tennessee's defensive line, they're beasts. I was stunned. I think the most surprising part of that game was that Tennessee's defensive line simply didn't show up. And that's a statement to how well Ohio State played in that. It's a statement to how well Ohio State has prepared for that. Like, I think those are all very real things. Now, you're right. This game, look across the board. When we talk national championship contenders, and again, I'll take the best of everybody from right now. The best of Texas when it comes down to being a national championship contender is that defense can stop almost anybody, and they can run the football. When they don't run the football effectively, SEC championship game, they lose. The best of Penn State is going out and being able to say, hey, we're not going to make Drew Aller win this game. We're going to let Drew Aller be efficient while we run the football. And by the way, we're going to stuff the run. Like the best of Penn State was running the football against Oregon, which took Oregon right to the line. Like this goes on and on. Notre Dame has a quarterback that's really kind of a running back. The best of Notre Dame is we're going to shut down the run. We're going to make you one-dimensional. You're going to have to throw against a defense that can absolutely clobber you in that capacity. And then we're going to have a running quarterback that adds to our running backs to basically run the ball down your throat. Like this is old school 90s football right now. Run the ball, stop the run, win the game. So I think you're right. The biggest concern here is that Ohio State's been up and down running the football. The biggest concern, if I'm Oregon, I haven't slept in weeks because all I do is keep watching that Big Ten championship game where Penn State wasn't even being cute. They weren't changing their formations up. They weren't doing different things. They basically did what you do when you're playing somebody that stinks at Madden. They found the same play and they're like, all right, going to run it again. I'm going to run this halfback angle route until you can stop it. Anybody that's played Madden, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's what Penn State did. We're just going to run the ball right up the gut, right here. Between these two guys, we're going to run the ball over and over and over again. Oregon had nothing for that. I'm concerned if I'm Oregon because if Ohio State has that same success, then Oregon will lose this game.
So there's two guys we haven't talked about with the Oregon or Ohio State. It's Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard. We'll tackle those two quarterbacks after the break. This episode is brought to you by GameTime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you all the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to the Rose Bowl using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The best part, when I won, I got paid instantly. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, JC, you've been watching football for a long time. You've been covering college football for a while as well. You can generally tell. I don't know you very well. I'm just going to kind of assume on this part.
We're friends now. We're second time we're hanging out. We're buddies.
You can tell, and you know when a guy has it as a quarterback. You can tell when a guy doesn't have it as a quarterback. I'm not going to answer the question. I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think Will Howard has it?
God, you guys are going to hate this answer, but I don't. There are times. So has it is a couple of things here. Number one, it's bounce back from mistakes. Now, that part of Will Howard, we've seen. Man, a couple pick sixes where he basically goes full Oprah. You get a touchdown, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown to the other team. He bounces back from that really well. Short-term memory, I think, is a big part of having it. But I'll use Jameis Winston as the NFL example of a perfect quarterback that fools you into thinking they have it until you see that same throw again. I think at times Will Howard is a little reckless. There are times that I look at it, and it's not just the pick, it's where he was going with it. Like a couple of things we all know you can't do when you're throwing. You can't throw late, you can't throw high, right? And so when you look at some of these picks that have happened, it's like, oh, the ball came out late, the ball sailed on him, it was picked. That happens once, you say, okay. That happens a couple of times, man. So the funny thing is, I think if we were just playing video game version of football, I think that Will Howard is every bit the quarterback, maybe a better quarterback when he just talks skills than Dylan Gabriel. I'll give you that all day long. Dylan Gabriel is just a cleaner quarterback. He looks like a guy that's played more football. So like Dylan Gabriel has it in the sense that he makes the right play at the right time with the right read. Dylan's not about like, I got to do something spectacular. He does some of that. But most of his special sauce is I've seen a ton of football. I'm like 8,000 years old, still playing college football. I make the right read. I make the right throw at the right time. Will doesn't have that portion of it sometimes. And that's what scares me in this matchup. Like, I think this matchup is down to the 80s tag team of coach and quarterback. And coach and quarterback, when you include Dylan Gabriel, man, that makes it tough to go against Oregon in this.
It does, man. And I don't like being the guy here that has to differentiate between, well, Will Howard doesn't have it, because I don't believe he does either. I've not been sold overall that he is a major upgrade over Kyle McCord. I know it's after the fact where Kyle McCord just broke an ACC record. So I know that at hindsight 2020, even before the fact, I was like, I don't know if this guy is the guy that is a major upgrade. I see the benefits between Howard over McCord. I see the benefits sometimes of McCord over Howard as well. Will Howard's ability to bounce back wasn't there in the Michigan game. He couldn't get over it. I also think he may have been a little bit more dinged up than what they said he was, and he was still on the field. And I think it was a big reason why he was making some really odd throws late in the game when you're trying to win the game. It's like, why are you doing it short? Why are you going to the sideline? In this game, I don't think he's going to do that. At least I hope he's able to stay upright and stay healthy. But I think his ability to bounce back will be big. But I also wonder if he's going to be able to make the big boy throws. I don't know. I'm not sure if he can make the big boy throws over and over and over. Do you think he can make the big boy throws to Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Cardinal Tate against Oregon's defense?
No. And that's the biggest difference. You're right. And when he was dumping off short in that Michigan game, my first thought was, man, he's just feeling the game. You know, and by that, I mean feeling the hits. That offensive line, as you referenced, and I think I'm going to keep going back to the fat guys up front because fat guys win it. They win you football games. That's fact. And once the big boys up front started letting them down a little bit, and I don't think that that's necessarily a statement to a lack of talent. It's a statement to what you referenced to, lack of continuity. We talk about that a lot, right? Like lack of continuity up front. Once that got into his head, I feel like he became less than. And that's human nature. That's natural. It happens to quarterbacks at every level of football. So how do you walk your way through that? The problem is Ohio State has the type of wide receiver room. I genuinely believe in 4 years, we're going to be watching Sunday football and we're going to look back and say, wait a minute, they were all in one room at the same time, kind of like we do with that Justin Jefferson LSU team. We're going to look at it and be like, wait. That was one wide receiver and they didn't win a natty? Like that's real. And that's one of the reasons why you start to look at modern college football and the emphasis is so often on, I'm going to get a transfer portal quarterback that I believe won't lose me football games, that has seen a lot of football. Because when you have great weapons, you got to win. You got to win the matchups with those weapons. I don't believe that there's a team left in the college football playoff that can touch the weapons. There's just the skill position players that Ohio State has. I just don't know that I trust Will Howard to be able to replicate what we saw last week. Like, look, against Tennessee, give him his flowers. Give him his props. Like, that was Will Howard showing you he can carve people up when he finds those weapons. Against Oregon, that's going to be a lot tougher.
One thing that will be tough for Ohio State, let's go to the defensive side of the ball, because in the first matchup, which I think is going to still be a big factor in this game here, Oregon's speed kind of hurt Ohio State in numerous ways. Denzel Burke is still going to play. Igbenogsen's still going to play. You might get some more Jermaine Matthews Jr. in the backup role. Lorenzo Styles maybe more in the backup role. Jim Knowles has moved Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom and Jordan Hancock all over the field to try to confuse quarterbacks. But you mentioned something about Dillon Gabriel a little bit earlier that kind of gives Oregon fans a little confidence, and Ohio State fans might be shaking in their boots right now. Dillon Gabriel's experience in being able to rise to the occasion in numerous areas, I do think it's going to be one where in the Rose Bowl, he's going to find ways to once again allow Oregon speed to take advantage of Ohio State's defense. Even though Ohio State's defense is going to be different than it was the first meeting, I don't have the confidence, overall confidence for 4 quarters, that Ohio State's defense can overcome some of the things that Oregon's speed is going to throw at them.
Yeah, and part of this is Dillon Gabriel is slippery enough. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say he's one of those like dual threat run around you. Like, we're not sitting here trying to make him Jaden Daniels. But what you'll watch when you see Dillon Gabriel is that he moves left to right really well. He extends plays really well. He did this in the Big Ten championship game a bunch, where when he stepped out of the pocket, instead of running straight forward to get the 8 or 10 yards that were in front of him, he ran left and right long enough to extend plays. And when you have so much speed on the outside, you're asking guys to run for a really long time with guys that run and know where the football is headed. It's such an offensive advantage. And one of the hills I die on constantly when we talk about athletic quarterbacks is everybody says, well, I want a quarterback that can make plays off schedule. Yes. What you want, whether an NFL, college, same thing. What you want is a quarterback that can execute your game plan and make the throws on time, on schedule that are being asked to be made. And then 5 or 6 times a game, when everything breaks down and it's total chaos, you want that quarterback to save you from those opportunities. And what do we see Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar do so well at the NFL level? They force defenders at the mid-level of the field to make a decision. All right, the minute they start to run, are you going to step up? And if you're going to step up on Mahomes, you got to know that he's going to be happy just dinking it right over your head for 8 yards. Or are you going to step back? And if you step back, Mahomes is going to take the 8 yards that's in front. It's why it's a lose-lose proposition taking on some of these quarterbacks that remain really accurate with the football once they slide around in the pocket. Dillon Gabriel does a lot of that. Like, for a guy that I don't think has a chance to play Sundays, he is a Saturday equivalent of extending plays in a way that forces defenses to make decisions. And we saw that against Penn State. Once they made a decision, he's like, all right, if you're going to come up, I'm just going to throw it over the top and we're going to be just fine. That is what Oregon can do. And it's maddening. It's frustrating. Sometimes you just got to accept that when he's running around, hey, give him the 5 yards that are in front of him, because the 5 yards are better than the 50. And that's a constant battle. You are putting defensive players at conflict, trying to make decisions mid-play. That's what Dillon Gabriel does beautiful.
So one thing Ohio State's defense, I think, has done a whole lot better since that loss to Oregon was get pressure on the quarterback. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I do know Tuimoloau and Sawyer and even Cody Simon and Sonny Styles have been big pieces of the pie of Ohio State getting more pressure on the quarterback. Tyleik Williams in the last game against Tennessee was doing some things where I'm thinking, why wasn't this done 5 or 6 games ago? Like, I'm just silly asking those questions in my head while I'm watching the game. for as slippery as Dylan Gabriel can be, and as good as he can be, is trying to figure out how to attack what a defense is throwing at him. I think Ohio State's going to get more pressure on Dylan Gabriel this time versus the last time. I'm not even trying to say it's going to be a lot of blitzing or it's going to be just guys rushing the front four. I think it's going to be a mix of all of the above. And I think it's one of the advantages for Ohio State's defense as they try to slow down Oregon's attack. I do think that the guys up front are going to get more pressure on Dylan Gabriel, which will make this more of a chess match for full 4 quarters.
I agree. I think part of this is the advantage that comes from seeing a team a second time.
Yeah.
Right. So they've spent a long time looking back at the film of what they can do. What Ohio State did really well against Tennessee, and tip of the cap, this is in part coaching and in part execution. They timed what they were doing so well, whether it was sneaking up to the line or backing off the play. They timed it so well. Nico Iamaleava just didn't stand a chance. I mean, that Tennessee offensive line was wildly confused throughout the course of the game. If you start confusing everybody up front, man, that's such a difference maker. So now you apply that to the Oregon matchup and you say, okay, can they apply that same level of making Dylan Gabriel think a little bit more? And that's that little split second. Hey, I thought I was getting this, but instead I'm getting that. When you time that perfectly, that's when defenses become elite. And I really thought Ohio State's defense against Tennessee wasn't great. It was elite. It was next level. Put that film on all year long and just show your squad what they can be when things are being executed at the highest possible level. The other part of this matchup is that now Ohio State has seen the speed once. And I do believe speed, the first time you see it in person, I had a former player tell me this, you can look all day long on film and say, I got this. And then when you get on the field with them, you're like, oh, I don't got this. Like, this is much different than I thought. So the advantage you get when you see a team a second time in the course of a year is that you have a little bit better anticipation of where speed's going to take things. So I expect Ohio State to execute better against the speed because they've seen the speed in person. That's a huge advantage. And frankly, I think that's part of the reason that this, if it weren't for that portion of it, I'd pick it right now, Oregon, to beat anybody left in the college football playoff. Part of the reason I think this game is so tricky for Oregon is because, frankly, it's the second time Ohio State gets to see him. And if your coaches are worth a salt, right? If they're worth anything, then you should be able to have a big advantage in a second matchup.
It's New Year's Day. Jason Fitz is here, and we're going to do something a little bit different on the day of the Rose Bowl. It's kind of tie Ryan Day into New Year's resolutions. We'll dive into this next. So I don't normally just throw topics at guests before coming on a show, but this one with Jason, I was like, hey, I got this thought. He's like, cool, let's go ahead and do it. What is your New Year's resolution for Ryan Day?
To get Mike Vrabel an NFL job? Is that too saucy? Am I stirring too much? Like his resolution is going to be call every NFL team and say, hey, just go give Vrabes a job somewhere so that we can stop this chatter. Like it's interesting to me. And you know this being right in the thick of it. This is what coaches deal with all the time. It's what they get paid to deal with. But the absolute just bandwagon pile-on that comes every time Ohio State loses a game. And we've talked about it before, but Ohio State and James Franklin are both in interesting. Ryan Day and James Franklin are both in interesting situations where no matter what they do, their fans are not going to be pleased, right? If your Ohio State fans are looking at it and say, well, we got to find a way to beat Oregon, I get that. There's so much pressure constantly. Like, this is already a pressure-filled job. You've already got the Buddy Garrity's for all you Friday Night Lights fans that are knocking on your door anyway saying, Coach, where'd we go wrong? I give money to the program. You're already dealing with that. Now you're dealing with social media. Now you're dealing with players. Now you're dealing with media. Now you're dealing with first take arguments. Like, all these stupid things that are happening left and right. If I'm Ryan Day, I'm like, you know what? Part of this comes because Mike Vrabel, who is one of the just most beloved people in the NFL college football, everybody loves Vrabes. So, like, all right, go get him a job somewhere so that people stop connecting him to the Ohio State job. I wonder if that would calm everybody, because it has to be hard for Ohio State fans that are turning around saying, well, I got a guy I know right now who can take that job. And it's got to be hard for Ryan Day to sit here and say, my God, yet again, here we go with this. So the New Year's resolution, go out and give Braves a job coaching, I don't know, the Browns or the Raiders or whoever ends up firing their head coach this year so that he doesn't have to hear quite as much from over his shoulder.
Mine is simply just win the national championship right now.
I mean, that's easier. So it's easier to give Braves a job than it is to do that. Come on, now.
It is. But I feel like Ryan. Now I could have gone to the Michigan thing, but I don't want to go to Thanksgiving of the new year to try to go ahead and dive down that far. winning a national championship simply, for the most part, can save a job. Now, sometimes it doesn't. We've seen guys get fired a year or 2 years after winning the Natty. So I'm not saying that's going to be Ryan Day, where he wins the Natty, then gets fired a year or two down the road. But for the year that this is, where you have all these guys stay in school, they could have gone to the NFL and made millions. You go out there and get Caleb Downs and Seth McLaughlin from Alabama. You bring in Quinshawn Judkins and Will Howard. You do all these things, even changing some of the coaching staff. You have your running back coach go to Michigan, of all places. Like, things are just a little bit weird right now. But Ryan Day, 10-2 regular season, your 4 straight loss to Michigan. You can't erase the record in the rivalry. But winning a national championship would make this season feel somewhat okay. Now, it's not all the way okay because you didn't lose to Michigan.
Wait. So you're telling me if Ohio State wins the Natty, there are still fans that are going to be mad about Michigan?
Oh, yeah.
I hear it, but it's dumb. Like, you don't raise a banner for the game. You raise a banner for a national championship. Like, Sports Illustrated doesn't come out and say, buy all of our commemorative gear for beating Michigan. But they do come out and say, buy all our commemorative gear for winning the national championship. Like, confetti doesn't fall for the game. Like, I hear you, but man, that just speaks to just priorities. Like, that's such an old school football way of thinking. And in the new era, man, I want a coach that can win me a national champion. I don't care if I lose to Michigan every year if I keep putting banners up every year while Michigan's sitting there trying to figure out how to get to 9-10 wins.
No, you're correct. But there are going to be fans out there that say, well, he still lost 4 years. I don't want to go down. Like, yes, there are fans out there, and I may know a couple, that if you win the Natty this year, there are going to be people out there saying, well, he still lost to Michigan. Wait. They got T-shirts. I used to buy T-shirts and hats for things that Ohio State won. There will be fans out there that will put that Michigan rivalry above everything. One of the guys that comes on the show, used to come on here all the time, said Ohio State's fan base is the most fickle fan base in the country, one of the most insane fan bases in the country. He's been covering college football for 20-plus years. And he says it on the show all the time. It doesn't hold back. That's just a fan base. Like, that rivalry is different. But for Ryan Day, he made a comment earlier, and the 80 backed it up. The goal was to always make it to the playoff. And making it to the playoff is one thing, but then if you go ahead and win the national championship, you're accomplishing your goal in the year. Yes, one of the team's goals every year is to beat Michigan, but the last goal is to win the national championship, which is the last game every single year. Ryan Day winning the national championship as a New Year's resolution, that takes a whole load of stress off of him. That allows him to get something that a lot of coaches don't ever have. There are some really good coaches that never won a national championship. And I really, really want that for Ryan Day in his 6th year in Columbus.
Imagine, I know college. Look, I've been covering college football since 2016. And it's my favorite sport to cover. I will loudly, for your audience, I will say my favorite sport to cover is college football because I don't have a favorite team. So I genuinely don't care who wins or loses. I am a lifelong diehard Raiders fan. I care immensely about NFL Sunday, who wins and loses. That's part of who I am. It's part of how I'm natured. So I understand super fandom. Like, the reason I do what I do is my super fandom. I have a Raiders tattoo, for the love of God. Team stinks. I'm still wearing the hoodie, right? So I understand super fandom. And I understand college football better than most, having had the luxury in my life of traveling with Game Day for a year and being part of that show. I've seen all of the environments. I've been to Columbus when I was touring in country music. We toured with Rascal Flatts for a year, known Ohio State fans. We did a bunch of stuff around. Like, I have been around that city. I've been around Ohio State. I have friends around this. I understand. So I say all of this to say I understand how you feel. I truly do. But just let's just play this out for a second. Imagine for me as a Raiders fan, if I said, look, I don't care if we win our division. I don't care if we win the Super Bowl. I just want to see the Raiders beat the Chiefs. I would get laughed out of the room by everybody else. Like, I understand why for generations that, we are not that far off from the generation where the national championship was voted on. And, if we're going to have a world where national championship games are voted on or nobody plays anybody, then yes, Ohio State, Michigan is everything because you live there, you live it, you eat it, you breathe it. I've got friends that are Michigan State fans. I understand that grew up in that area, that you bleed one color. I get it. I get all of that. That being said, just apply this to any other sport in the world. Apply it to college basketball. You know what? Duke didn't win the national championship game this year, but they swept North Carolina. The season was a success. No. At some point, if you are a fan of the greatest programs in the sport, your only goal, your only objective is the national championship. And the second objective is to win your conference. And the third objective, and it's a way down the list, is to beat your biggest rival. Because at the end of the day, congratulations. If Auburn manages to beat Alabama one year, they can talk their talk all year long. Michigan can talk their talk all year about winning the game. But last time I checked, winning the game is not the same as winning the national championship. And Michigan fans of all should know that. They know what it feels like to win a national championship. And you can't tell me that that doesn't feel better, like that doesn't last longer. There isn't more history. We need to be better as college football. Not better. We need to be different as college football heads. And we need to sit back and embrace something. The game has changed, which means as much as the rivalries mean something, you know who that rival, the game should matter to Ohio State and Michigan. It should be everything if neither team is competing for a national championship. If you're Michigan State, the only thing that matters to Sparty every year is beating Michigan because, holy God, you beat Michigan. Cool. Because you don't have a chance at the national championship. If you have the chance at the Natty, then beating your rival is arguably the third most important. Win the national championship, make it to the playoffs, ... beat your rival.
I'm with you. I am with you. I used to be a person that would always say it's beat Michigan. Then when you think about it, even when I was saying that, Ohio State was the better team. They had the more athletes. They had the better talent, had the better coaches. Winning the national championship has to be the thing. That doesn't diminish. I still think there's utmost importance to rivalry games, but the last game of the year is what you want to be playing in, and you want to win that game. Now, for Ryan Day, he doesn't want to go 0-4 or 0-4. Well, he's already 0-4, 4 in a row. Don't want to lose 5 in a row. I do think winning that national championship this year, if it were to happen, would give him confidence, way more confidence, going into next year's matchup. Before we get into next year's matchup,
one more thing, real quick on this. Imagine being at a Christmas party. You're an Ohio State fan. You're at a Christmas party, and you're sitting there a couple of years ago. You're sitting there at a Christmas party, and you got an Auburn fan and an Alabama fan standing across from you. And the Alabama fan is wearing their national championship T-shirt. And the Auburn fan comes in and says, "Oh, yeah? Well, we beat you in the Iron Bowl." You would laugh that Auburn fan out the door. You'd be like, "Really? You're going to talk about you're going to talk about the Iron Bowl when there's a national championship here?" If you took your emotion out of it and you just put yourself in any other fan base where they're like, "Oh yeah, well we beat our biggest rival," you would laugh them out the door if a winner of a rivalry game tried to trash talk a national champion in the same year. I'm just saying. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I wish you had more time. Let's get back to the game. It's Rose Bowl. It's New Year's Day. Granddaddy of them all. Who wins, Ohio State or Oregon?
I got to go with, I said earlier, trust means something to me. When the season started, I picked Oregon to win the national championship. And before the season ever started, when I was asked why, I said, here's what I trust. I trust a coach that is cemented where they are, that coaches with the confidence of knowing that there's nothing that's going to touch them, with a roster that has explosive speed, right? With a roster full of guys that, for the most part, have played a lot of football. And most importantly, with a college football quarterback that has seen it all. What I am describing right there to a T is Oregon. And this to me becomes very simple. If I have to trust one of these tandems to make the right play, a coach quarterback plan tandem, to make the right call, the right decision, the right game management, the right decisions within 2 minutes of the game, the right decision on fourth down, all of the little things that come into the game. There are a handful of plays that will win or lose you a playoff football game this good. If I have to trust at this point, Lanning and Gabriel or Day and Howard, advantage Lanning and Gabriel. There's a lot of ways Ohio State could win this football game. I think it is close. I think it is down to the wire. But that's all the more reason, close down to the wire, I have to take Oregon.
I'm going with Oregon myself as well. It kind of annoys me that I'm looking at an Ohio State season where it's going to be, 11-3? I forgot. Yeah, 11-3. 2 losses to Oregon, 1 to Michigan. But I do agree with you, honestly. It's part of the trust. Ryan Day can win big games. Will Howard, I think, is a guy that at his best can win big games.
Yep.
Will Howard, I can pencil him in for 2 mistakes a game in a big one. May it be an interception, may it be a fumble, may it be a bobble snap. 2 mistakes. He almost has to be perfect in this game. Also, I don't know what to get from the offensive line. Will they be able to run the ball consistently? Be efficient. I think they can do a little bit on the ground, but for 4 quarters, I don't know if they're going to have a running game that's efficient enough to win the game. I have trust in the guys to get pressure. I got trust in the defense to do a lot of things to slow down Oregon. But Ryan Day, I think, might bring more of that Georgia Ryan Day out, more of that aggressive nature. I don't know if he'll call plays in this game or not. I trust Chip Kelly, but I think Ryan Day, knowing what's on the line, might say, Chip, give me that playbook. I got to do this. It's Will Howard. It's the run game. It's the offensive line. Those 3 areas that make me a little bit nervous. That's why I'm going with Oregon in this one.
Yeah, your assessment's great. And look, I want chaos. That's all I root for in this. So for Ohio State fans that listen, like, I love your fandom. I know I've been tough on Ohio State. I want to be clear. I love the fandom of Ohio State fans. Like, I love I will never forget sitting there watching the broadcast and seeing the best damn band in the land with tears, as they're going. One of my closest friends told me years ago in Nashville at the time, he had the honor of dotting the I. And he said, look, greatest moment of my life was dotting the I. And I looked at him and I said, dude, you're married with 3 kids. And he said, I know. Greatest moment of my life was dotting the I. Like, I understand the passion here. I would love to see that passion rewarded. I think it'd be just incredible to see this move on. I wish we were getting these instead of neutral sites. I wish these were home games. Like, I'll never forget what we saw last weekend, and what a statement by Ohio State. I just think that this is the unfortunate thing about the way the seedings and the rankings didn't gel together. We get the best matchup of the college football playoff. We get it in this round. I think we get the eventual national champion out of this game.
He is Jason Fitz. He's a Yahoo Sports football analyst and a co-host of the College Football Power Hour. You can follow him on X at Jason Fitz. Follow me on the same platform at JStevens07. Guys, we're up out of here. It's New Year's Day. Looking forward to the Rose Bowl. We both think Oregon's going to win. Do you agree with us? Drop your comment on this video on YouTube.